Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. And
Oh.
today we're going deep on something that is pretty crucial for all of us. I would say the glucose tolerance test, or
Yeah.
GTT.
The GTT.
You've probably heard of it, but I was surprised to learn from the research you shared how much this one test can actually reveal
Mm-hmm.
about your metabolic health.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just your risk for diabetes, but also your energy levels,
Yeah.
mood,
Yeah.
even your long-term cognitive health.
It's true.
Like, it's kind of wild how much you can find out.
Yeah, it gives us a really dynamic view of how your body handles sugar, which, as you can imagine,
Yeah.
impacts pretty much every cell in your body.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Okay, so I know from what you sent me that the GTT basically measures how effectively your body clears glucose from your bloodstream. But can you break that down for us a little bit more? What is actually happening during this test?
Yeah, so there are actually two types of tests.
Yeah.
There's the oral glucose tolerance test, so the OGTT,
Okay.
and then there's the intravenous glucose tolerance test, or IVGTT. The OGTT is the one that you're more likely to encounter.
Right.
So let's focus on that one for the purposes of this deep dive.
Okay.
Basically, it's designed to track your body's response to a sugar challenge.
So it's deliberately spiking your blood sugar
Exactly.
to see how your body handles it.
Yeah, you're basically
That's intense.
flooding your system with sugar and then seeing how it reacts.
Okay.
So it starts with fasting for 8 to 12 hours to kind of get that baseline blood glucose level, and then you have your blood drawn.
Okay.
And this is where it gets interesting. You drink a solution
Okay.
that contains 75 grams of glucose.
Oh, my gosh.
Some people compare it to flat soda,
Huh.
but let's just say it's a concentrated dose of sweetness.
I was going to say, that's a lot sugar.
Yeah, it's a lot.
75 grams.
It's a lot of sugar.
Okay. And then they just keep drawing your blood.
They do.
I imagine that gets old fast.
Well, they take your blood several more times over the next 2 hours, usually at the 30, 60, 90, and 120-minute marks.
Okay.
So this creates a timeline of how your body processes that glucose load over time.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm starting to see why you said dynamic view.
Right.
It's not just a single snapshot.
That's
This is
right.
giving you
The whole picture.
the whole story, the whole movie
The whole movie.
of your body's response.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got these multiple blood draws.
Yep.
But what are they actually measuring? I know you mentioned two key values, fasting plasma glucose and the 2-hour post-glucose load
Yes.
reading.
Reading, exactly.
Can you kind of walk us through what those mean?
Absolutely. So your fasting plasma glucose, or FPG, should ideally be under 100 milligrams per deciliter.
Okay.
Between 100 and 125 is considered pre-diabetes.
Okay.
And then 126 milligrams per deciliter or higher on 2 separate tests indicates diabetes.
Got it.
Okay. And then the 2-hour reading, taken 2 hours after the sugary drink, should be less than 140. Pre-diabetes falls between 140 and 199.
Okay.
And then 200 or higher suggests diabetes.
So those numbers paint a pretty clear picture of how well your body is handling glucose.
Right.
And I'm guessing this is where understanding insulin comes in, right?
Yes, you got it.
Okay.
So think of insulin as the bouncer at a club.
Okay.
Glucose is trying to get into your cells
Okay.
to party and provide energy, but it needs insulin to unlock the door.
Got it.
So a high fasting glucose might suggest that even when things are calm, your body is struggling to regulate glucose.
Right.
Maybe the bouncers are already overwhelmed before the party even starts.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
So the 2-hour reading is checking how efficiently your body responds to that sudden influx of glucose.
Exactly.
So it's are the bouncers...
Yeah, can they handle a big rush at the door?
Yeah. Can they handle it when everybody shows up at once?
Exactly.
Okay.
It tells us how well your insulin is working to clear that sugar from your bloodstream. If your 2-hour reading is high, it could mean your insulin isn't doing its job as effectively.
Yeah.
Maybe the bouncers are getting tired and letting too much glucose kind of linger in the bloodstream.
So this GTT is really giving us a behind-the-scenes look
Yes.
at the interplay between glucose and insulin.
Yes.
But I'm curious, what are some of the factors that can influence these results? Is it always as straightforward as high number equals bad,
Right.
low number equals good?
That's a great question because it's not always that simple.
Okay.
Medications, illness, even stress can temporarily affect your glucose levels.
Oh, wow.
Imagine the club scenario if there's a fire drill or
Yeah.
everyone suddenly decides to leave at once.
Right.
It's going to throw things off, right?
Right. So context is really important when you're interpreting these results.
Yes.
It's not just about the numbers themselves, but about understanding what might be influencing those numbers.
Exactly.
And I'm guessing pregnancy is one of those situations where things can get a bit more complex.
Absolutely. Pregnancy is a time of major hormonal shifts,
Right.
which can definitely impact glucose metabolism. In fact, the GTT is frequently used to screen for gestational diabetes,
Okay.
a type of diabetes that can develop during pregnancy.
Right.
They use slightly different thresholds for diagnosis in pregnant women
Okay.
because those hormonal changes can really throw a wrench in the usual glucose-insulin balance.
Yeah, it sounds like pregnancy is almost like having a whole different set of rules
Yeah,
for the club.
it is.
Different bouncers,
Different bouncer.
different entry requirements.
Yeah.
Maybe even a different kind of music.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
It highlights how important it is to consider the individual's specific circumstances
Right.
when interpreting GTT results.
For sure. And speaking of individual circumstances, there are other tools and tests that can help us understand metabolic health
Yes.
beyond just the GTT, right?
Absolutely.
You mentioned the A1C test, which gives us like a broader picture of your
Yes.
average blood sugar levels over the past few months.
Hmm.
Almost like checking the club's attendance records
Yeah.
over a longer period rather than
Yes.
just focusing on that one night.
Exactly.
But before we dive into those other tools, I think it's crucial to understand why all of this matters.
Yeah.
We've talked about diabetes,
Right.
but you mentioned that metabolic health impacts so much more than that.
It does.
Can you unpack that for us?
You're right. Metabolic health isn't just about preventing diabetes.
Okay.
It's fundamentally connected to your overall well-being
Okay.
because your body needs glucose for energy.
Right.
When that process is disrupted, it can have like ripple effects
Wow.
throughout your system, impacting everything from your energy levels and mood
Okay.
to your long-term risk for heart disease, stroke,
Yeah.
even cognitive decline.
Wow, that's a lot more than I realized.
It is.
So even if someone isn't concerned about diabetes, like understanding their metabolic health can give them valuable insights into their overall well-being and help them make proactive choices to support their health in the long run.
Yeah, it's like having a detailed blueprint of your body's energy system.
Right.
The more you understand how it works, the better equipped you are to keep it functioning optimally.
That makes a lot of sense. This has been eye-opening. We've covered so much ground already, from like the mechanics of the GTT itself to the broader implications for our overall health. We'll be back in a moment to delve even deeper into this fascinating topic, so stay tuned.
Sounds good. Welcome back to our deep dive into the glucose tolerance test. Before we went to break, we were talking about how metabolic health is about so much more than just diabetes.
Yeah, it really is fascinating to think that this one test, the GTT, can give us like a glimpse into such a fundamental aspect of our health. You mentioned that it impacts everything from energy levels and mood to long-term risks for things like heart disease and cognitive decline.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Absolutely. So let's start with energy. When your body can't efficiently process glucose, your cells are essentially starved for fuel. This can lead to fatigue, sluggishness, and that all too familiar mid-afternoon slump.
I think we've all experienced that feeling of like hitting a wall energy-wise.
Yeah.
So you're saying that could be related to how our bodies are handling glucose.
It certainly could be a contributing factor.
Wow.
Now think about mood.
Okay.
Glucose is also crucial for brain function,
Okay.
and fluctuations in blood sugar levels can directly impact neurotransmitter activity.
Right.
Those chemical messengers in your brain that regulate mood.
Yeah.
So if your glucose metabolism is out of whack,
Okay.
you might experience mood swings, irritability, or even anxiety.
That's incredible. I always thought of mood as being purely psychological,
Yeah.
but knowing that it's also tied to our metabolic health is a game changer.
It really highlights how interconnected our bodies are.
Yeah.
And speaking of interconnectedness, let's not forget about the heart. Chronically elevated glucose levels can damage blood vessels,
Oh, wow.
increasing the risk of heart disease and stroke. It's like constantly running your car engine too hot. Eventually, something's going to give.
So taking care of our metabolic health is also a way of taking care of our cardiovascular health.
Oh, exactly.
It's all part of the same big picture.
It's all connected.
Yeah. And then there's the brain. Emerging research suggests that long-term dysregulation of glucose metabolism may contribute to cognitive decline. and increase the risk of conditions like Alzheimer's disease.
Exactly.
Wow, so it's not just about feeling good in the moment, it's about protecting our brains for the long haul.
That's precisely it. Now, you mentioned earlier that there are other tools and tests that can complement the GTT.
Right.
One of those is the A1C test,
Yes.
which gives us a broader perspective on your average blood sugar levels over
Uh-huh.
the past few months. It's like looking at your bank statements to see your spending habits over time,
Okay.
rather than just focusing on a single transaction.
So we've got the GTT, which is like a snapshot in time,
Right.
and the A1C, which gives us that long-term view.
Exactly.
What other factors might a doctor consider when evaluating someone's metabolic health?
So they'll definitely look at your overall health history, family history of diabetes, lifestyle factors like diet and exercise,
Right.
and any symptoms you might be experiencing. It's like piecing together a puzzle
Yes.
to get a complete picture of your individual metabolic health. They might also consider measuring insulin levels directly to get a more precise understanding of how your pancreas is functioning.
Oh, so it's a multifaceted approach,
Mm-hmm.
taking into account all these different pieces of information.
Yes.
And speaking of information, we've been throwing around a lot of terms and concepts today. I want to make sure our listener feels empowered to take this knowledge and apply it to their own lives. What are some key takeaways you want to leave them with?
First and foremost, remember that knowledge is power. The more you understand about your metabolic health, the better equipped you are to make informed decisions. Don't be afraid to ask your doctor about the GTT or any other test that can provide insights into your metabolic function.
It's about being proactive and advocating for your own health.
Absolutely. Second, keep in mind that metabolic health is a lifelong journey, not a destination.
Okay.
It's about making sustainable lifestyle choices that support your body's ability to process glucose efficiently.
Right.
This includes things like eating a balanced diet, getting regular exercise, managing stress levels, and getting enough sleep.
It's about those everyday habits that can have a profound impact on our long-term well-being.
Exactly. And finally, don't get too caught up in the numbers.
Okay.
While lab values like FPG and the 2-hour reading are important indicators, they should always be interpreted in context.
Right.
Remember those factors we discussed that can influence results, medications, illness, stress, even recent physical activity.
So it's about having that open dialogue with your doctor to understand what those numbers mean for you specifically.
That's right. Your doctor can help you make sense of the data and create a personalized plan that addresses your unique needs and goals.
This has been an incredibly insightful conversation, and I feel like we've just scratched the surface of this complex and fascinating topic. But before we wrap up our deep dive into the GDT, I want to touch on one more important aspect, the power of prevention.
Okay.
We've talked about the GTT as a diagnostic tool, but is there a role for it in preventing metabolic issues before they even arise? We're back for the final part of our deep dive into the glucose tolerance test. And before the break, we were talking about the power of prevention when it comes to metabolic health.
Yeah.
Could the GCT be used as a preventative tool, even for people who aren't currently showing any signs of metabolic issues?
That's a really interesting question, and one that I think more and more people are starting to ask. While the GTT isn't typically used as a routine screening tool for like the general population, it can be really valuable for individuals who have risk factors for metabolic disorders.
Okay, so what kind of risk factors are we talking about?
Things like family history of diabetes, obesity, a sedentary lifestyle, or even certain ethnicities that are predisposed to metabolic issues.
Yeah.
In these cases, getting a GTT earlier in life can provide valuable insights and allow for early intervention.
Gotcha.
It's like getting a sneak peek at your metabolic blueprint and making adjustments before any major problems arise.
So it's about being proactive and catching those warning signs early on. I imagine that can make like a huge difference in terms of long-term health outcomes.
Absolutely. Early detection is key. It allows you to make those lifestyle changes and adopt healthy habits that can help prevent or delay the onset of serious metabolic disorders.
We've covered so much ground in this deep dive. We've explored the science behind the GTT, decoded those sometimes confusing lab values, and really emphasized the importance of understanding your individual metabolic health. As we wrap things up, what are some of the most important takeaways you want our listener to remember about the GTT and its significance?
I think the biggest takeaway is that the GTT is more than just a test for diabetes. It's a powerful tool for assessing your overall metabolic health and understanding how your body handles sugar. This information can empower you to make informed decisions about your health, even if you're not currently experiencing any symptoms.
Knowledge is power.
Right.
especially when it comes to our health.
Exactly. I also want to reiterate that those lab values we discussed, the fasting glucose and the 2-hour reading, are important indicators, but they don't tell the whole story.
Right.
It's crucial to have an open and honest conversation with your doctor about your individual results, considering factors like medications, illness, stress, and recent physical activity that could influence those numbers.
So it's about looking at the whole picture, not just fixating on a single data point.
Exactly. And finally, I want to emphasize that metabolic health isn't just about preventing disease. It's about optimizing your well-being, your energy levels, your mood, your cognitive function, your overall vitality.
It's about thriving, not just surviving.
Beautifully said.
This deep dive into the glucose tolerance test has been incredibly eye-opening. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and insights with us today.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our amazing listener, we hope this deep dive has left you feeling empowered and informed.
Absolutely.
Remember, knowledge is your greatest asset when it comes to your health. Keep asking questions, stay curious, and keep those brains buzzing.
You've been listening to the Learning Podcast, a production of metaNESTA. Remember, learning is a journey. One step, one insight, one skill at a time. We'll see you next time. Keep learning, stay curious, and as always, be awesome.